And I think we may be live. Then again, maybe we're not. But if we are, get your coffee, kids. It's time for Monday morning coffee and compliance. So we'll let everybody jump in here. And I'll jump in my own page. And let's see. Hope everybody's off to a wonderful start. And this is not at the right location. This is saying it's on my page. Oh, wait a second. Bridget says she likes our video on the nerdy page, so this must be it. Hang on, kids. We're coming. There we go. Sorry about that.
Good morning.
Well, yeah, you know what? It's Monday, everybody, and we're still drinking coffee, which, you know, give us a little grace here on our caffeine intake. And let's see, we're going to change this view. There we go. And welcome. Let's see, we're a little frozen here. So boy, am I having technical difficulties this morning. Maybe I shouldn't try Monday mornings. Let's see, we're going to have some volume there, and we don't want that. We don't want that. There we go. Hey, we already got 7 people joining us. All righty. I'm not going to call out names like on Romper Room. I'm going to try to be good about that.
Thank you.
But good morning, everybody. And thank you for joining us on our inaugural Monday morning coffee and compliance. And we thought, you know, Lori and I were talking, and there is so much going on. We just thought this would be a great way to get information out there to everybody. So, you know, there's so much going on. We've got rules, we got forms, we got this, we got that. And you guys all know, I am so fortunate to work with the queen of compliance herself, Lori Namazi, who all of you know. She is my business partner, and she is the Thelma to my Louise. And we're just out here trying to make the real estate world a better place, but she's doing a far better job because she just knows what's going on. And she talks to brokers and agents each and every week, asking questions related, or she's answering questions related to office operations, transactions, policies, procedures, COVID-19, and more. And if she doesn't know the answer, which usually she does, because that's just Lori and that's how she rolls, she's going to find that answer, because she always looks at the question from the risk management and compliance point of views to provide additional context to protect her clients. So hopefully we're going to talk some good stuff that you guys can all use, because we're going to talk about showings and COVID-19. And we're not going to, for every week, we're not going to stick with COVID-19. We're going to mix it up. Like next week, I'll give you a little teaser here. We got new forms coming. We're going to talk new forms. But this week, we are going to talk about COVID-19 showing rules and what's happening out there versus what's supposed to be happening out there. So it's kind of like, do I really have to do this? Do I really have to do that?
Yeah, that's the start of every question that I get is, do I really ...
And what's the answer to that?
Normally it's yes.
Yeah. And it was interesting. It was really interesting yesterday. I had gone out and shown multiple properties for the first time since all of this COVID-19 stuff has started. And my client is one of my sellers. So she got to see everything that I did. So she was very observant as to, well, they don't have this and they didn't do that. So let's talk about some of those things that maybe they did or maybe they didn't. What are we supposed to have at the door, Lori?
So that's a great question. And I'll start by saying it's interesting that your client is seeing both sides of this. And, you know, that can make you look really good or really bad. And it can make our industry look really good or really bad, that there's this inconsistency. And even further beyond our clients seeing it, you know, we also have our agents. You know, I can very easily say, hey, my salespeople, here's what you have to do. And they will do it. But then when they go to other properties and it's not happening, the question I'm going to get is, well, do I really have to do it? Because they're not doing it. I thought you said we all had to do it. And the answer is we all do have to do it. And so this is where it gets really challenging is, you know, I feel very confident that among this nerdy group are the agents who are really engaged, pay attention to the rules, want to follow the rules. But now we're going out there and saying, okay, the rules are, but what's the real world? What's going on in the real world? And that's what you experienced over the weekend and a bunch of others that I spoke with last week. We're experiencing the same thing. So what are you supposed to have at the front door? Okay, well, the property is supposed to be equipped with certain materials, okay? So the property has to be equipped. So you need to have disposable masks. You need to have either hand sanitizer or a hand washing station. Ideally, you need both. And you need to have received your PEDs electronically. You can't have them at the door. You cannot have flyers at your house. You know, gloves are optional, booties are optional, but the gloves, the masks are required, and hand sanitizer and a hand washing station. They're actually both required, but you don't have to require somebody to use or do both.
Well, I'll tell you, it was very interesting. And, you know, the first thing I noticed was the signs at the door, because I had my client have a little table out in front. We had little sign holders. We had the signs out. I didn't see very many signs. In fact, the interesting thing was I didn't see what was required. So what is required to be posted?
So what's required to be posted, and yes, I forgot to mention that because I'm thinking the supplies, but you're right. The poster is supposed to be at the property. When somebody first approaches the door, they have to be able to see the 2-page flyer. So it's the PRE, the property rules entry form, and it's the rules as well as the graphic. So both of those need to be posted either on the door, on the window, on a table, in a flyer stand. It doesn't really matter, but they need to be available, visible as somebody is preparing to walk into the door.
Okay.
So having them inside on the dining room table doesn't satisfy that. You can put them there also, but they need to be visible when someone approaches that door.
Okay. That was kind of hit or miss. I think we were maybe at a 40% compliance with that. One was like blown off the door and sitting in the front yard. That wasn't a good look, but
and that was an easy one. You know, I mean, it did change once already. So I know a bunch of people that laminated it because they wanted it to look more professional. I totally respect that. But then it changed a couple days later. So if you want to laminate it, great. But just know that just because you laminate it doesn't mean that that's the version you get to use forever. Because if it changes, you've got to use the current one.
Well, and also too, something that I'm not seeing anybody doing is, well, I can't say anybody, I did it, but putting both of those posters, the JPEGs, in as photos in their listing, which we're supposed to be doing, and nobody's really following that too good. I know they're not real pretty and nobody really wants to see those, but that's something we need to be doing too, right?
Well, that one is not really mandated as required. You're supposed to be able to make it visible. And so that's really an optional add-on that you can do, where you can do it as a supplement in the MLS. You could do it as a link to the documents, but it was highly recommended to put it in as a photo with your photos. That way, you know, that's being syndicated out. That way you have more confidence that the person has seen it. And the truth is, you know, you've got to be able to demonstrate that you've done your job. You've put it in as many places as you could possibly imagine for the potential buyer and the buyer's agent to find it. So they're provided as JPEGs. You have to convert them. In fact, I don't remember if I converted them as a JPEG or a PNG, but either way, you can easily convert them.
Exactly. And before we get to the front door, PEAD forms. I hate that word. PEAD-V forms. Okay, what's the deal with that? What are we supposed to be doing?
So first we need to make peace with the PEAD forms. And I stole that from someone last weekend. So we need to make peace with those. You know, we are required to provide the PES to our sellers. It's part of our listing agreement now, the supplemental listing agreement forms. And it also needs to be provided to those potential buyers who are going to go view properties. So as a buyer's agent, you are required to provide that form to your buyer. And so you do that electronically. There's no more, hey, let's just print it out, we'll have them hand sign it. No, you've got to do it digitally. And then you need to send it over to the listing agent. The listing agent has the ultimate responsibility of making sure that everyone that enters the property has been informed of the potential risks and the best practices. And this is the way we do that.
Now, is there a certain time people should be sending this in?
It's supposed to be. The reality is it's only as good as the moment it's signed. So if you signed it a week ago, that information may no longer be valid. So it's supposed to be signed the same day of your property visit.
Okay. So
that's if I'm a listing agent and you want to come show my property and you send me something that's 3 days old, I'm going to reject it because I need to know that as of that day, your potential buyer and you, the buyer's agent, who's also coming in, are attesting to the fact that you are not currently sick and to the best of your knowledge, you've not been exposed to the virus.
And this would even go for the listing agent that's going to come into the house or meet the clients, open the doors and come in and sanitize behind them, which will save sanitation for last.
Yes, that's right. Anyone that's entering.
Okay.
And that includes the listing agent.
And so for the PPE, personal protection equipment, who is supposed to supply what?
So again, the property has to be equipped and the burden falls on the brokerage, the listing brokerage. So by extension, that's the listing agent. And so, there's a provision that allows for the seller to provide it and or pay for it. And by the way, you cannot take any upfront money from anybody. So if they say, here, I'll give you $50, can you just go buy it? The answer is no. You can purchase it and then they can reimburse you off a receipt, but don't collect advance monies. So that's something people need to realize. The seller can provide it, the seller can pay for it, but the burden is on the listing brokerage to make sure it's there. And so if you are not confident that your seller is going to leave it out or that the seller is going to have enough available, take that responsibility on. Don't shift that burden to someone else because ultimately you're responsible.
And so what all is needed? What do you have to have versus what is kind of nice to have?
So you have to have the disposable masks. You have to have hand sanitizer. And you have to have a hand washing station available. And so there's, I've had many questions about, well, if sanitizer is available and allowed, why do we have to have a hand washing station? And the answer is some people are allergic to the latex. And so they have to have an option. And so, in my opinion, it's important to provide that, but there also is some risk with that. And so, if I do not have a bathroom right at the front door, when you first walk in,
which most people
don't, then someone has to traipse through the house and potentially touch something to get to the bathroom or the kitchen, and then they're touching the faucet. So, my recommendation is to have a conversation with the people that are requesting the showing, talk to the agent and say, look, we're going to have hand sanitizer. Do you need more? Do you need a hand washing station? And so even though the prospective entrants are allowed to do either or, the burden is on us. And I personally feel there's some added risk if I need to provide a hand washing station that's halfway across the house. So I'm going to provide the sanitizer at the door, but I'll ask the question when I'm talking to them, preparing for that showing or scheduling that showing, and say, do any of the parties need a hand washing station? And if so, then you need to talk through where it's located and how they'll access it.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Yesterday, it was 7 properties that I showed. And so I got to see 7 different examples and only one of them had everything.
Wow.
But one of them had a hand washing station. And actually it was kind of nice because I want to say it was house number 6. and we were getting all hand sanitized out where everything was feeling sticky. And so it really kind of was nice to be able to wash our hands. But the problem was, where's the trash can? And they had a bag under the sink that you had to open the cabinet to get it. You know, I don't, you know, it's have your trash can out there. If you're going to have paper towels, have a trash can right next to the sink, people, because it's going to be really handy. It actually was nice though, to be able to really wash our hands. But yeah, it was interesting. One thing I found very interesting was that people were, they were leaving canisters of disinfectant wipes, and that was it at a couple of the houses. And it's like, wait a second, what do you want me to do? You want me to be, you know, is this my hand sanitizer? It seems kind of a waste of a Clorox wipe. But sanitizing, let's talk about sanitizing.
Yeah, that one's a really tough one because, again, the burden falls on the listing brokerage. The property has to be cleaned, and it has to be properly cleaned, and the burden is on that listing broker. So again, by extension, that listing agent. So whether that is feasible or not really doesn't matter. It's our responsibility. So we have to make it work. So we have to be sure that we are cleaning the property before someone arrives, because that's what's in the best practices, which, remember, the best practices, the guidelines, these are government issued guidelines. And in our industry, you know, we sort of look at the word guideline and think of it as a suggestion, because we almost never make anything mandatory in our industry because of the nature of our business and the independent contractor status. But the reality is, when a government agency issues guidelines, these are directives. These are specific rules. Whether it's a law, you could debate it, but it's under the governor's order for the reopening plan that we are to follow the health administration's directives. So therefore, it's basically a law. Now, is it legally a law? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but it's basically
kind of like the water conserving fixture thing. It's a law, but who's going to enforce it?
Who's going to enforce it? And so, you know, the mandatory, the BPPP form is now titled Mandatory Government Showing Requirements. And in that showing requirement, it says the property will be cleaned before a showing and after showing, which implies between showings as well.
Well, and we have a comment from Mary Jane saying, what does cleaning mean?
Yes, so there is no true specifics of that, but you know, we all have to use common sense in what we're doing at home and apply that in the business. And this is our business, so that's our workplace. That listing is our workplace. And so remember, you know, back in March when we were all first asked to stay at home and we all were sanitizing everything, you know, I mean, remember the funny video of the guy in the bathroom that touched the faucet and then he had to sanitize his hands, but he had to rewash his hands, but he touched the bottle of soap. So now he had to rewash his hands and wash the bottle. And then he grabbed the paper towel. Now he has to wash the paper towel. I mean, remember those days where we were obsessing over it? We need to be those people, and we need to walk in and we need to say, okay, what could they have touched? Well, they would have touched the doorknob. And that includes the screen door, the front door, both sides of the doorknob. Okay, any handles, handrails going up the stairs, kitchen cabinets, hall closets, all of these items that people probably would have touched need to be wiped down. And as much as we'd like to think, well, we're gonna expect the buyer's agent to just clean up after them. You know, I was a Girl Scout, and so we came in and we saw the condition, but we cleaned first, then we did, and then we cleaned after. You know, because
always leave it better than you found it.
Always leave it better than you found it, because we don't want to depend on someone else to have done it or not done it. So the best case scenario is it's your listing and you've cleaned it, and then I'm the buyer's agent and I come in and I wipe everything down before we get started or as we're going and as we're leaving, and then you come in behind me and clean it. Okay, that's the best case scenario. But what's the reality? Listing agent might not have done it. Buyer's agent might not have done it. Listing agent didn't do it again. So nobody did it. So we have to assume nobody did it. And so, what is the definition of cleaning? There isn't a specific, but, we have some guidance that tells us which items to wipe down with either a disinfectant wipe, rubbing alcohol, soap, things of that nature.
Well, and it was interesting that one of the things that I noticed was people coming in right behind me on a vacant showing, and the agents are like, send me a PED and go direct. They have no idea that I was in there. Well, they know I'm in there from the lockbox, but they don't know when I'm coming. They don't know who's coming behind me. And I saw an agent pulling in right when I was pulling out. I didn't clean because there wasn't any cleaning materials. And it's like, okay, so who's watching? Nobody's watching. And so if you're out there, yeah, it's a pain. You're getting paid decent money. Get your Clorox wipes and have appointments and get out there and wipe down your listings. Is it a pain? Yes, it is. But at least you're covering yourself, because nobody's going to do it. I did not go through and clean any of those houses. 2 of them had wipes. And I'm like, you know what? I got to get to the next stop. I'm not going through. Perhaps the next time that I show, I'll just put a wipe in my hand and just follow, myself through. But if you got vacant listings out there, people, it's just as important as when you have people living in the house. You are responsible for this. And really, I think if anything is being thrown to the wayside, that is what's being missed out there. Nobody really cares.
Yeah, I think it's one of those areas where no one truly wants to take responsibility for it. I mean, do I enjoy the fact that as a listing brokerage, I'm ultimately responsible? No, of course not. But the reality is our job is to protect our clients. And so, yes, the listing brokerage has the responsibility of providing the PPE. And yes, they have the responsibility of keeping the place clean. But that doesn't mean that the buyer's agent shouldn't take those same precautions. Because if the property is not equipped with the PPE, as a buyer's agent, your responsibility is to show your buyer in the compliant way. And that means you have to provide your own. And so now when it comes to cleaning supplies, if they didn't leave you any, then you should number one, expect that they didn't clean it before you got there. And number two, they're not cleaning it after. And so if it were me, I would have that tub of disposable wipes in my arm, and I'd be walking around too. And because now it's my job, even though the listing brokerage has the responsibility, I'm the one showing the property. I'm the one responsible now to make sure that I've shown that buyer compliantly, safely, for my own health, for their health, and for the people after us. And so, we can't place blame and sole responsibility on one side. As practitioners, we have to go in and say, you know what? I don't know if anyone did it, but I'm going to do it because we are better than others. So we are going to do it.
And one thing else that I've noticed out there in boots on the ground land is the glove situation. Because when I was selling my listing, I would tell people that they'd have to put gloves on at the door. And you put the gloves on at the door, you can go in, you can, open the door, you can do whatever, because you got on fresh, clean gloves. And then when you walk out the door, you take them off in the proper method where there are all the bad stuffs on the inside and throw them away. I'm watching people putting gloves on in their car and touching whatever. And then they come out and I'm like, okay, I need fresh gloves. These are fresh gloves. And it's like, no, they're not fresh gloves. You touched your funk. I don't want your funk in my house. So, if you're out there showing and you have a client that wants to put the gloves on beforehand, no, just, I went through so many stinking gloves yesterday. It wasn't even funny. But, it's part of doing business now. And we've got a few minutes left, but I want to talk about virtual open houses that aren't quite so virtual. Okay. What's the rules on that?
So OSHA has put out the guideline, the directive that says no open houses. Showings should be done virtually when possible. Okay, well, we're all doing that. We're showing the property through photos, through virtual tours. Ultimately, a buyer wants to go see the property. We are now able to go show them those properties safely. But open house is still not allowed. And I'm seeing a lot of people trying to make an open house, a true open house, not look like an open house by today's standards. And so the rule is that you can't have an open house that's open to the public, to people to just walk in. You have to have appointments. So then people think, well, if I advertise it and get people to make an appointment, it's allowed, right? Technically, if they had an appointment, yes. But I think what people are doing is they're advertising in a way that will compel people driving by to come swing by. So there are open house signs, and people are showing up at properties. Are they groups? Maybe, maybe not. It depends how popular the property is. But if they don't have a pre-scheduled appointment, it looks really gray. And consumers don't really know what our rules are. But I can tell you, if they don't see 100 open houses this weekend like they used to see, they're gonna wonder what's allowed. If they see one agent doing it only, they should be questioning, is it even allowed? And so whether the consumer truly understands it or not, and whether you skirt the line and comply because, hey, you've advertised it, but you didn't let anyone in unless, it's kind of like when you go to Starbucks and you mobile order from the parking lot. How many of us have done that? We've done it because we get there, we think we'll just run in, the line's too long, we'll mobile order. Okay, so we can get away with it. We can get away with having them digitally sign up for it, but it's really going to be the perception of what you did, the perception of your peers who are looking and saying, hey, that looks exactly like an open house. Now, did they follow the rule to the T? Maybe. Maybe they did it digitally. Maybe they sent them a PED via DocuSign, and now it's all legit. But the reality is, if this is the first time you're meeting a stranger who wants to show the property, you're probably doing an open house.
Yeah, and that's what I ran across yesterday. It was an open house in every sense of the word, other than the fact that he had virtual on his signs. There were signs on every corner. You couldn't miss it. You go to the property, got the big open house flags and more open house signs, but they all said virtual. And I walked in with my client, who we had our PED forms, and we had a scheduled time to see it. There was a flyer stand. There was notepads to take. I'm sitting there just going, "Oh my God, this is an honest to God open house." And my biggest concern was not just the neighbors coming in and the perception that agent was marketing for the neighbors. He was marketing to show off that he got the listing. But now another agent sees it, and they're going to say this is okay to do, and it's just one of those things. I was appalled, actually. I waited till my appointment time to go in, but I realized I could have come just waltzing in, grab a flyer, grab a notepad, have a good old open house time. So, it's just because you can, which you shouldn't, really think about what it is you're doing. If I was that agent and I was going to be holding a virtual open house, number one, I wouldn't have the signs up, because you're giving the perception right there.
Exactly.
You're having an open house. We all know people don't read. They're just seeing arrows and they're going to go wherever. And two, keep the front door closed. Don't have signs up saying open house with an open front door that says virtual. Yes, virtually, I'm walking into this house and it's open. So, I was just really appalled. Keep the door shut, promote it on Facebook, sitting there and talk to people and, show them under the sink and everything with your phone. But people, don't do that, please, until we get the green light.
The idea of virtual open house is that people will be able to schedule time to view the property. And really the virtual open house is, I'm here, you have an appointment, and I'm going to show you through the use of technology what this house looks like. It's not a virtual open house if people are showing up. There's nothing virtual about that. They're actually there. And
Yeah.
so, you know, if you're doing pre-scheduled tours, okay, again, we could change the name of it to make it fit. But if it really looks like we're trying to market to people who do not have agents, who won't have an appointment to come and find us, I'm in agreement with the signs. Any directional sign, you are intentionally trying to pull people off the street to find this. Because if they truly had an appointment with you, they would have found this somewhere online, and there's an address, and we have this wonderful thing called a GPS. They know how to get to the property. They don't need directions.
Is a wonderful thing. Yeah. And I know we got to run because you have somewhere you need to be, and we're very fortunate to have you. I will just throw one last thing out there. Agents, if you're going to sit there and tell people they need shoe covers, booties, or whatever, get them clean ones and have them throw them away when they're done, because nothing's worse than used booties at a property. It's really gross. It's really disgusting. And just your favorite title rep can help you. I promise they can help you. So on that note, Lori, do you have any parting words?
No, just, you know, I mean, yes, just basically, you have to look at this from multiple points of view. You have to be able to say, what am I doing that fits the rule, but also what is the perception? And if you feel that you're trying to get away with something, you probably are, and it's not the right thing to do. And so, you know, we have to be the leaders in this industry and do things right. We have to always question how we can do things that are in the best interest of our clients and for our industry. And we can absolutely produce under these conditions. We don't have to try to skirt the system and make these rules, you know, fit to our needs. You're just going to look slimy. And I know that's not what this group's all about, but unfortunately we're going to see it out there. So there are tons of resources on what to do. And, you know, this group is great to always ask your questions. I'm always available for your questions. Just do the right thing.
We do have one last question regarding this, because that person did seem slimy that did it. Mary Jane asks, so what's the recourse when agents say it's virtual and the door is open, such as the one that I stopped by yesterday?
Yeah, so here, we don't know yet. But what I can tell you, the only way to stop this is to report them. And in CAR's FAQ, they pretty much make the statement that says, you know, we don't have jurisdiction over that. That's going to be up to your local, which means that's up to your local grievance committee and a hearing panel to look at what is provided as evidence and have them make that determination. And so it's going to be interesting because we have to police each other. And if we don't turn someone in, then they're going to do it again. And then, like you said, others will see it and think it's okay, so they'll start doing it too, which very well could revoke our ability to do this. I mean, the governor's orders are pretty clear. Like, they're making allowances for us to do this as long as we follow the guidelines. But just like we saw with the beaches, you know, if a bunch of people go to the beach got closed. If a bunch of people do open houses, we're not going to be able to do anything. So, you know, I think that the really the only recourse is to submit a complaint to your local board. What happens next? I don't know if we know yet. I think we'll find out soon.
I think we shall. Okay, so this is going to wrap up our first Monday morning coffee and compliance with the compliance queen, Lori. And I so appreciate you taking time. I am so fortunate to have you as my business partner, and you keep me on the straight and narrow. Somebody's got to. You and Brandy. But next week, we're going to do this again next Monday, 10 o'clock, and we're going to talk about what, Lori?
We're going to talk about the normal forms releases that are going to be released, the normal form release period, which is next week. So we don't have any COVID forms to talk about, but we do have a couple new forms and several revisions, and those will be released next week. So we're going to talk about those first thing Monday morning. They might actually be released Monday, but they say week of the 22nd, but they very well could be available the 22nd. So you'll have that info first thing.
Good. So just put us on your calendar, 10 o'clock on Monday. We're going to try to do this weekly and keep everybody, up to date on what's happening out here. So we so appreciate you joining us, and we will see you next Monday. Have a good day, everybody. Go out and sell a house. Talk to you soon.
Be safe.
Yes, be safe.
Do the right thing.